Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm Alicia, and today I'm doing my November wrap-up, which I think this might be my actual first monthly wrap-up I've done. So I'm very proud of myself because I love organization, but I can sometimes be the most disorganized person in the entire world. I've been meaning to keep track of what I'm reading and then talk about it at the end of every month, and I keep forgetting. But this month, I actually have been keeping track of everything through Bookmori, I think is how you say it. It's an app. All it really does for me is show me what I've read, which is all I really need it to do. I don't really care about my stats. It'd be cool to see stats, but I don't know if there's a free app for that. Anyways, regardless, I read 11 books this month, which is pretty crazy because I don't know, I feel like I usually read about half of that when I'm not really paying attention, but to be honest, I couldn't tell you because I never keep track. But I want to start doing these monthly. So I'm hoping that we can also do one in December, but without further ado, I just want to go ahead and start talking and yapping about all the books that I read in November because there were some good ones, and I think we even had a 5-star. I think we'll go in order of when I read them. Let's get started. Oh, actually, don't forget to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this content. Okay, now we're really gonna get started. Okay, the first book I'm gonna talk about is Such Lovely Skin, which I actually listened to on audiobook. I watched, I think, Wicked Reading. I love her. And I love her content so much. I'm obsessed. I saw that she had read it and she liked it. When I heard the premise, I was like, ooh, that sounds like something I would like. So Such Lovely Skin is basically about a Twitch streamer, a girl who's still in high school, I believe. Yeah, she's still in high school, which that part of it, them being everyone, all the kids being in high school, all the main characters mostly, that was a little I'm 30. It's a little weird sometimes to read about things in high school perspectives, but I just liked the horror story part of it, so I didn't mind as much. So, and it didn't read too high school-y, I don't think. I've read books that read younger than this one did, if that makes any sense. But I really liked the audiobook, so I will recommend, if this story sounds interesting to you, listen to it. It's on Spotify, I believe, and I'm sure you can get it on Audible too. I really, really enjoyed the audiobook of it. But this is a Twitch streamer. She's in high school. She recently lost her little sister, and she has some guilt associated with it. I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't say more than that, but there's a secret that she's keeping. This game is sent to her inbox, and she usually streams horror games, so this is perfect for her. It's a horror game. So she starts to play it, and some weird stuff starts happening. And when she's playing this game, because I think she's testing it out before she actually streams it, I believe is what she's doing as a Twitch streamer. She's playing this game, and in the game asks her to tell it a secret. And she tells it some BS secret, and the game tells her back that's not good enough to open whatever it is in the game, And so she finally reveals the guilt that she has towards her sister's death. I'm not gonna say, but she does reveal that. By doing that, she accidentally welcomes a demonic creature thing into her life, and chaos ensues, and it's just really fun. This book to me felt like just a fun tech horror. So listening to the audiobook, it felt like it played out like a high school horror movie. That was the feeling that it gave. I feel like I always say this, but when it does read like a horror movie that I could envision myself seeing, I love it. I just love those vibes. I find it so fun. And if a book is that, I'm gonna love it. But yeah, okay, so this one I rated 4 stars. And the only reason I didn't rate it 5 stars was because I did feel like it felt a little bit too high school for me to give it 5 stars. I will say, in terms of enjoying it though, it almost gave me that 5-star feel. I really enjoyed listening to it. And I even found myself trying to figure out other things to clean so that I could keep listening to it, because I do feel like for me to listen to an audiobook, I need to be doing something else. And I kept trying to find other things to do. And I even found myself sometimes just sitting down after cleaning and just continuing to listen to it, which I don't normally do that. Usually if I'm done cleaning, I just stop listening altogether to the audiobook. Definitely check it out. I loved it. The next one I read also, oh my gosh, it was so fun because I read it right after Halloween. And this one was Taste Like Candy. And when I put the cover up here, When I tell you this is my favorite cover ever, is it not so cute? Which is the whole reason that I even wanted to read it, was just because of the cover. I saw the cover in someone else's video and I was like, and they hadn't even read it yet. So it wasn't like they recommended it or anything, but I was like, I have to read that immediately. And I really wanted to read it during Halloween, but I just didn't have time. And so I read it, I think the day after Halloween, or a couple days, because I was still listening to the Such Lovely Skin audiobook while I was like I read this on the Kindle because it is on Kindle Unlimited. Hey, my Kindle Unlimited girlies, this one's for you. It's on Kindle Unlimited. So I was reading it on my Kindle and it's so fast paced. It's a shorter book as well. So I love that. It's all I'm honestly going to say about it is that it's your typical slasher, like high school slasher, but set at a carnival. So it's just fun vibes all around. And it is really fun to read it around Halloween time because that is what I did. I did read it after Halloween, but technically, it's still kind of around Halloween when I read it. And I will say that did help with the vibes. But honestly, you could read this at any time. It's really fun. Again, it was just a really fun read. And I don't know why I read like high school book after high school book. Like usually I say I hate reading from high school point of view, but I will say I think that's mostly for romance. Reading like high school romance books, not into it. But when it's a horror book, I don't really care as much, I guess. I loved it. If you're looking for just a fun, kind of like a girly slasher, I would say. Legally Blonde, but slasher, like that sort of thing. Like if you really love girly stuff, but you also love horror and slashers, like this is perfect for you. So I rated this one 4 stars, though it wasn't quite 5 stars. 1, because it was a shorter book, and 2, because it was just such a fun book to where I just didn't feel like it was serious enough to get like 5 stars. But I did love it so much, and I definitely highly recommend if you're just looking for a short, sweet because it tastes like candy, and fun ride. And if you love slasher, because I will say, it literally mostly is just like a slasher, but so fun, like slasher, like killing people, but so fun. So highly recommend if that's your vibe. And then we move on to Tastes Like Candy 2, because I couldn't get enough. And when I knew there was a second one, I immediately had to read it, also on Kindle Unlimited, and I gave this one 4 stars as well. I went into the second one feeling like, how could they make a second one? I was very curious how they were going to do it and how it would be as good as the first. And I did give it 4 stars, but I will say I think I did prefer the first book over the second book. But the second book honestly held its own. It was just such a fun ride. It kept the essence and the feeling of the first book, but told a different story that also had to do with the first story. So it was really just a great second book. And honestly, I want to read more by this author. Read these 2 books. They're so fun and they're so easy to read, honestly. Like if you're just looking for something to pass the time, this is it. That's what I have to say about those 2. And I don't want to say anything about the second book just because you would have to read the first one, and like I don't want to spoil anything from the first one. So that's all I can really say about those. I'm sorry. Okay, the next one I read was The Eyes Are the Best Part, and I gave this one 4 stars as well. A lot of 4 stars this month. This one I loved. It's a shorter book. It's basically about a woman that lives with her mom. She's like 18, I believe. She lives with her mom and her younger sister that's 15, I think. She eats a fish eyeball and then becomes obsessed with eyes, and chaos ensues. I feel like in all the books I read, it's like something happens and then chaos ensues. In this one, she eats an eyeball, starts craving eyeballs, starts thinking about her mom's boyfriend's eyeballs. It's crazy and thrilling and just a wild ride. This book was so different. I don't want to say it was like fun, because it, comparatively to the 3 other books I read before this, it's not the same. Like those were like fun, chaotic rides. This one's more of a serious but also crazy wild ride, if that makes any sense. But I did love it. It was such an interesting read. Like it was more interesting than it was fun. If you love a shorter horror book that has some really gross scenes in it, but that also has like commentary on womanhood and being a woman in the world, and also you love eyeball gore, this is the book for you. This is the book for you. Okay, moving on. I read Better Run, which was my first dark romance ever. and I have to say, I was into it. I gave it 5 stars. I gave it 5 stars. And I will say that I discussed this in my reading vlog, which if you like reading vlogs, I do have a couple reading vlogs. I think almost all of the books that I read this month I did reading vlogs for, so go back and check those out. But in my reading vlog, I talked about how I think I'm gonna start rating books based on their genre, because I just think it's kind of crazy to compare like ACOTAR, which is a 5-star. I mean, I'd give it 11 stars, but like 5 stars for me. It's hard to compare like that to The Eyes Are the Best Part or Tastes Like Candy or Dark Romance, like Better Run. Like, it's just hard to compare those two. So for the dark romance category, Better Run for me, because it was my first one and I loved it, it's a 5-star, because I don't know what I'm missing, if I was missing anything. But I will say, so I loved it, and I think you will love it if you like light kidnapping, and if you like, there's a lot of non-consent stuff that happens. So, because I mean, with light kidnapping, that is to probably be expected, but I'm just saying there are a lot of triggers in this book. So if you're thinking of reading it, definitely check the trigger warnings. But I loved it. I thought it was just so fun. It was just fun. It made me giggle. It made me laugh. That's pretty much it. It made me giggle and it made me laugh. I just thought it was so fun. It was so fun to read and so different from what I'm used to reading. And I just enjoyed it. So if you like dark romance, I would recommend. It's on the shorter side, which is kind of nice. And it is on Kindle Unlimited as well. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, go ahead and give it a read. Again, check the trigger warnings. Basically, a girl gets kidnapped by this guy, and then this guy and his friend end up like keeping her and doing stuff to her. Not gonna say any more than that, but there is like a whole plot. Like, there's a reason behind why they kidnapped specifically her and all of that. So there is like a plot, which I really appreciated. I like when there is a plot in any romance. Like, if it's just romance or just dark romance, I feel like I wouldn't be into it. But with a plot, it makes it a whole story for me. So anyways, that was 5 stars for me. It was my first dark romance and I loved it. If you have any dark romance recs, put them in the comments, because I do want to try reading some more in the next coming month. And then the next one I'm going to talk about is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. And I listened to this on audiobook. And I actually started this book last year and I only had like 4 hours left, and I finally picked it back up this month and listened to the rest of it. I gave this one 4 stars. I love Riley Sager, and so it's hard to not compare, and I've read all of his other books, so it's hard to not like compare each book to each other. So for this one, I gave it 4 stars because it wasn't quite as good as some of his other books, which I would give 5 stars, like Home Before Dark, Lock Every Door. There are some of his that I have given 5 stars. This one, I felt like it was a little long for what it was, but if you like a good mystery thriller with twists and turns, I think you will like this book. So it's basically about this older woman, Lenora, I can't remember what her name is, but this older woman, she is thought to have murdered her entire family. And her entire family lived at this like estate. So they were like crazy rich. And they lived at this estate called Hope's End. She ends up needing a new nurse. And so our main character that we end up following, she becomes this older woman's nurse, because this older woman can't move, basically. Like, I think she can only move like one hand, but the rest of her just doesn't move. And she can't speak or anything like that. So she needs a lot of care is what I'm trying to say. And the new nurse who we're following, I can't recall her name at the moment because I did finish this like a couple weeks ago. The woman that we're following, like her point of view, she ends up taking care of her. And while she's there, she starts to learn about all these mysteries and all these things and like different things that you have to kind of put together to figure out, you know, obviously to solve the mystery of what happened to Lenore's family the night that they were murdered, because everyone thinks she killed them, but she is able to type with the one hand on a typewriter, and she starts to tell her story to this new nurse. It starts to look like maybe she wasn't the one that murdered her family, and that she's going to finally like tell the truth and basically tell all by typing on this typewriter. But all this other stuff happens as well, and things are connecting, people are connecting, and it all comes together in the end. Like, everything makes sense in the end, and all the questions are solved in the end. So if that's the kind of thriller mystery you like, you will like this book. And I will say it was really good. I just felt like it was a bit long, and I felt like there were a little too many wrong turns thrown in. You know when like writers throw it, which Riley Sager is like notorious for, you know, when you get to the end of his book that like everything you thought might not be correct. Like, until you get to that last page and you close the book, there's probably more mysteries to come with Riley Sager, which I love. I love that. But yeah, so I did love it. I just didn't think it was 5-star material, but I would recommend if you love a thriller. I would recommend, honestly, any of Riley Sager's books if you love thrillers, except for Survive the Night. You can skip that one, but all his other ones are amazing. Moving on, we have Jackal, which I also listened to on audiobook. This one I gave 4 stars. I really loved listening to this one. I thought the narrator's voice it just stood out to me as so calming. Like, she just has some people just have the nicest voices to listen to. And I don't know how they are granted that gift, but they just are. And she has it. Whoever did the audiobook for that, she graced us with her amazing, beautiful voice. And I really enjoyed listening to it. I will say that I loved it up until 3/4 about, I think. And then I started to get a little confused. And so I think I may have just been too dumb to understand the ending of this book because... And it's not that I don't understand the commentary that's being like talked about. It's more of that I literally don't understand what happened. If you have read this book and you understand what happened in the end, can you please comment it below? Because I have no idea. I'm so confused. So basically the book is, there's this Black woman and she is going back to her small town to be in her like best friend from childhood's wedding party. And so she goes back to this small town and her best friend's white. So there is like a lot of race stuff in this book. So she goes back to her small town and she starts to learn about the fact that all of these Black girls have been going missing throughout the years basically around the same time. And now she's trying to figure out why, who's doing it, what's doing it, like basically what the heck's going on. She's trying to figure it out. And it starts to get very like, I don't know if you'd call it sci-fi or magical or what, but like in the end, I really was so confused as to literally what was happening. Like I couldn't picture it. I put the headphones on. I was listening to the audiobook. I went on a walk and I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like what do you, like, I couldn't understand. I couldn't picture it in my head. So I don't know. It left me confused. And that's why I gave it 4 stars, because I really enjoyed my time listening to it. I just did not get the ending. I didn't understand it. And if you did, please comment below, because I just was I feel like I needed to see it like in a movie. I needed to see it on screen to understand what happened. Like, I just feel so dumb. And I could just re-listen to it, but I don't want to. So I'm not going to, but I will recommend. If I had to compare it though to The Only One Left, I think I enjoyed The Only One Left more, but that's also probably because I am a big Riley Sager, like I'm a big fan of his writing. So I think it's just, I love his writing style. So of course I would probably love that book more than a lot of others, but I think Jackal was a really good thriller. It just lost me in the end. So do with that what you will. Okay, the next one I read was Sovereign, and that is another dark romance. It's got BDSM, a hot cowboy. I gave this one 3 stars, and I gave it 3 stars because I felt like there wasn't enough high stakes plot. And I mean, I guess having read it right after one with like light kidnapping, like that could be why, but I really felt like it lacked believability in my head. Like the stuff that happens, it felt very like, oh, everything was so easily solved by just like because the hot cowboy is like the guy that you don't mess with, and he really likes the main girl in this story. And so basically, like, she's protected. Like every time that something bad was going to happen to her, he was there. And so it was kind of like, well, now I'm not scared that anything bad's going to happen to her because like, I know you're going to protect her from it. And it was a little too romancy for me. Like it was a dark romance, but I didn't get enough dark. And I think in this romance, basically it was that the hot cowboy is like, he's killed people, you know, that kind of thing. And it was like, okay, but like, that's not really that dark. Like, I don't understand. Yeah, I just didn't think it was dark enough for me. Like, I just wasn't a super big fan. So if I could recommend one dark romance, it would be Better Run. It would not be Sovereign. But I didn't hate it. And I did read it all. So it's not like I DNF'd it, but I think it just wasn't my cup of tea. So, okay, next we have actually 2 shorter horror books because I had surgery this month, and both of these books that I'm going to talk about next, I read while I was like recovering in bed and like could barely move. So it was like, I was really happy I had these books. And actually the first one I'm going to talk about is Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. And I had my husband start reading it to me while I was like waiting to go into surgery, because I was literally like, I don't know why I didn't think about this. Well, I've never had surgery before, so like it makes sense that I wouldn't have thought about it. But I hadn't thought about the fact that one, they were going to take blood the day of the surgery. So there's that. But then also I would have to have an IV in. So by the end of it, like I had both of my arms felt like I couldn't do anything with them because I was so dramatic about it. And so I couldn't hold my Kindle. And so I asked my husband to read to me, and he did. And he didn't like what he was reading. He did not like, he is not a Nat Cassidy fan. I will tell you guys that. He is not a Nat Cassidy fan. He was like, what the F is this? This is trash. And I was like, babe, okay, I will say that I'm not a big Nat Cassidy fan either, but I really liked the cover of this book, so I wanted to read it. And comment below, am I missing something with Nat Cassidy? Because when I tell you, when I tried to read Mary, I was listening to it on audiobook and I DNF'd it. Like, I thought it was so boring. And then I read Nestlings all the way through, and I didn't hate it. That one was like I think I gave it like 3 stars. It was very mid for me. But Rest Stop, I didn't love it either. And I feel bad saying that because I feel like in the horror community, like all I see about Nat Cassidy is how everyone loves him and his writing. And I just like, I love a lot of horror books and I don't hate his writing. It's just like, I'm not like in love with it. And I don't know what it is about it, but it just isn't my favorite. I really liked it at first, this book, but I think I also just didn't like the way it ended. So basically this guy, sorry, I should tell you what it's about. So Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. There's this guy, Abe, and he's driving in his car, and he's in a band, and he's talking on the phone to people in the beginning. This was the part that my husband was reading to me, and he was like, what is this? So, but my husband also doesn't like read fiction, so that could also be why he was like, what in the world? He's driving in the car and he's on a road trip and he needs to pee. So, and he actually doesn't even need to pee. He stops at this rest stop because he thinks like, oh, I should probably, I think it was to get gas maybe, whatever. Somehow he stops at this, I don't remember. He stops at this rest stop and he thinks to himself like, oh, well, I might not see another gas station, so I better go pee. And one, he's a guy, can't he just pee on the side of the road if need be? And 2, he decides this after he sees that literally there's no one there. Like, he sees that there is nobody in this gas station at all. Like, not even workers. And he's still like, yeah, I'm gonna go pee, though. Like, I don't understand. I don't believe that. Actually, maybe. Guys think differently, okay? So actually, I'm thinking like, would my husband do that? And I'm like, literally, I think he probably would. Like, I could totally see my husband going up. Like, in my head, I'm like, danger, warning signs, red flags, like whatever. I'd be getting back in my car and getting the hell out of there. But I'm thinking about it and I'm like, my husband, I feel like he wouldn't necessarily instantly think danger. He would just be like, whatever, and then go do it. So actually maybe it was believable. But anyways, he goes into this bathroom at this rest stop and chaos ensues. Me with every horror book, they do this one thing and chaos ensues. But just a lot of stuff happens. There's bug horror, there's other horror. And then there's lots of blood, lots of slashing. I don't know. I think honestly there just wasn't enough plot for me. Because I know some people are more into like character development and that sort of thing. I think for me, I really need like the plot to be amazing. Like, I need there to be the plot. Because for this, it felt very much like just a short slasher. And I loved Taste Like Candy. And that was a short slasher as well, but I just felt like it had more plot. So this one for me, I only gave 3 stars, but I still kind of liked it. Like, I didn't love it, but I kind of liked it, you know? And I almost feel like if I read it again, I would maybe like it more. Like, I feel like it might be one of those where it's just like, you have, like, it just takes a minute and then you like it. So I'm so curious if you have read Rest Stop, what do you think in the comments? And also, if you have read any Nat Cassidy, what do you think in the comments? Because I can't tell what it is about his writing that just doesn't hit with me. And I think it might just be his plots. Like, I'm just not interested. Like, I think I'm going to be interested in them. And then when I'm reading them, it just doesn't, like, grip me enough, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, 3 stars. I kind of recommend. Like, I almost want to recommend only because I want to know what you guys thought. Like, I want to recommend so that you read it and then you tell me in the comments, like, what you thought about it. Because I just, like, I'm in the middle of the road with it. 3 star, I'm in the middle of the road with it. Next one I read was #ThighGap, which I think I was watching a Jordaline Reads video, like, while I was recovering, because I read Rest Stop first, and then I think I watched, like, a few reading vlogs, and she mentioned #ThighGap, and it was short, it was horror, and I was in the mood for that, so I was like, okay, it's on Kindle Unlimited, let me just get it up. So I read that one, and I really liked that one. Trigger warnings if you have any kind of eating disorder history or anything like that, or that triggers you, definitely, because that is mainly what this one touches on. But honestly, the ending of it, like, okay, I prefer, what does this say about me? Tell me in the comments. But I definitely preferred #ThighGap over Rest Stop. Definitely. Like, hard to compare the two because they're very, very different. So I don't know what it is about me that, like, makes me like one over the other, but I really liked that one comparatively because they're both short horror books, and yeah, I preferred #ThighGap way more. Basically, we follow this girl who used to be heavier and lost a bunch of weight, like, when she was a kid. And then lost a bunch of weight and became a model. And now she, like, works in, I believe, like, LA as a model. And we're following her progressively, like, getting thinner and, like, dealing with her eating disorder. But there's, like, even more mystery, which maybe that's what makes me like it more. Because in the end, we find out a whole new thing. It's hard to describe without, like, spoiling it. It was really good. And it was short. So I really liked that it was, like, short, but I also felt like we got to know her. I didn't really feel like we got to know the other characters, but I didn't really care about getting to know the other characters. I will say the other characters suck. Like, they're all terrible. Like, her therapist especially, literally, okay, this girl is dealing with her, like, she's dealing with all this stuff, okay? She, like, wants to get better. She's, like, talking to her therapist, and her therapist is basically like she's like, oh, I think I want to, like, go to rehab and, like, start eating again and whatever. And he's like, well, just don't gain weight or anything. Like, he is so terrible. And she's, like, so thin, and he's like, oh no, like, you're not too thin, like, you're perfect, like, blah blah blah, just don't gain weight, like, don't get fat. And it's crazy. It's so crazy. And I loved it. I loved every moment of it. It was so nice to have, like, a short horror to read while I was recovering. Like, it was just so great. So I rated that one 3 stars too, and I'm trying to remember why I rated it so low, because I would have thought I would rate it 4, but I think maybe it was just because although it was a great story, it wasn't long enough for me to rate it more than a 3 star. But if I had to compare it to Rest Stop, #ThighGap all the way, and it's on Kindle Unlimited, so that's all I'm saying. Anyways, moving on. The last book that I listened to this month was The Return of Ellie Black. And I listened to this through the Libby app. Love our libraries. I rated this one 4 stars, and I actually literally listened to the entire book in 2 days. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and then the day before Thanksgiving. I listened to it both of those days because I was doing a lot of cleaning, a lot of prep work, and it was great to just, like, pop it on my audiobook and, you know, do my stuff, get my stuff done. So this was a 4 stars for me. It's basically Ellie, who disappeared, comes back. The return. She comes back, she's found, and she had disappeared like 2 years ago, I believe it was, and we follow her as she tells her story of, and she doesn't, like, tell it to anyone. It's like, we're getting to hear it, but no one else in the world is. So we are, like, hearing from the day she went missing on. We get to hear her side of the story. And then we're also hearing the cop, who is a woman, and she is the one that's, like, on the case or whatever. And so we get to hear her backstory, which she had lost a sister, her sister. So we're kind of following, like, her story and her backstory, and then also, like, what's going on and how she feels about Ellie now that Ellie's back. And, like, things seem a little off with Ellie. and she's trying to figure out what it is. Like, why do things seem weird? Like, she's back, but she's not wanting to talk. Chelsea, the cop, is trying to figure out the reason why. So many twists and turns in this one. It was honestly so good. I gave it 4 stars only because I just didn't feel like it was fine. Like, it didn't make me go, oh, I love this book. It's one of my new favorites. But it did. It was so good, though. And if I had to compare it to the only one left, I would almost say that I liked it better because it was different than what I would normally read, I feel like, than what I've read recently. It was so different, and it was so gripping, and I loved every minute of it. And if you love a crime thriller with twists and turns and a little bit of psychological something, you'll love this. It was so good. It really was so good. I highly recommend if you love thrillers. But yeah, okay, you guys, that is everything I read in November. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books, if you want to read any of these books. And let me know what you guys read in November, because we can also talk about that in the comments. I just want to talk about books, you guys. But I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one.